Hello, gals and guys. It's your host, Phil Larson, and this is your motivational high five on surrender. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome back to this short podcast, your motivational high five. I am, for the first time, recording my podcast from home. I moved, and I mentioned that I was about to move, that I thought I was about to move. After that last episode, like the next day, I decided I got to move my stuff home. I can see the writing on the wall. Self-quarantine is in the cards. And so that I believe that was like middle of March-ish. And now we're at the end of April, and it's been well over a month, and I am recording this in my master bedroom. It's been a weird month, but hey, we're here. A couple things. I want to give two shout outs to two new patrons on patreon.com. They decided to support the podcast, both at $5 a month. Someone goes by Silent Good. How mysterious. Silent Good. Thank you for joining the Super High Five Club at $5 a month. And Adam Seymour, who has also joined the Super High Five Club and also joined our private Facebook group at Internal Motivators. You can get to it by going to internalmotivators.com. The Super High Five Club gets you access to an even shorter podcast, basically just recordings on my phone, raw, wherever, but the last month or so it's been in my house because that's the only option. But I send directions and emails on how to get that sent directly to your podcast app, just like any other podcast. If you're interested in supporting the podcast at $1 or $5 a month, just go to patreon.com/YMH5, the number 5. Patreon.com/YMH5. And friends, you may like what I have to say on this podcast, but I want to make something clear, if I haven't made it clear before, that what I say should never replace the advice of a professional counselor. For me, going to counseling was one of the best decisions of my life. In fact, it was that time in counseling and what I learned there that pushed me to start this podcast 4 years ago. And now, thanks to the success of this podcast, the massively successful e-counseling service BetterHelp reached out to me to offer my listeners, the listeners of this podcast, 10% off their first month. And after crunching some numbers, I realized my counseling ran double the price of BetterHelp, and that was just for an hour a week. BetterHelp is available to use 24/7. And there's even financial aid available to get the price down even more if you need it. If this is something that is intriguing to you, especially while in coronavirus quarantine, please take advantage of the 10% off the first month by going to BetterHelp, that's HELP help, betterhelp.com/YMH5. Use the number 5. Again, that's betterhelp.com/YMH5 for your motivational high five, and use the number 5. And it just feels full circle for me. It's because of counseling that this podcast even exists. And now, because of the podcast, I get to help people find their way into counseling. The link is available to see in the show notes if you're a visual person like I am. And I just hope you guys take advantage of this 10% discount BetterHelp is offering your motivational high five listeners. BetterHelp.com/YMH5. And now let's talk about surrender. And if there is ever a time that you think we might be in a time of surrender, it's now. I think there are so many elements, so much out of our control. You know, as I'm recording this, a lot of the world, especially the United States right now, is in full lockdown mode. Due to the coronavirus, we are in quarantine, and we only are supposed to go out for essential business or needs and things like that. And to be honest, I'm feeling some anxiety. I'm feeling all these things, and I just want to make my life easier. So I was really just playing around with the idea of doing kind of a replay of an old episode, the first episode on surrender, episode 23, way back in 2016. And I listened to it. It is a good one. And if you want to go back there and listen to it, I encourage you to do that. And it would be easier just to repost it. But if I were perfectly honest, that would take me out of the present moment, out of the now. In essence, it would be counter to surrender to the inevitability of our present reality, which is self-quarantine, which is individual isolation, which is scratching out this very episode from my bedroom and not my studio. Today, we got word that my son's daycare wouldn't reopen until the fall. We are talking August, and it's just the end of April. What is there to do but to throw up our hands at the absurdity? And then, as I think about it, what is a better image of surrender than throwing up one's hands, not at the absurdity, but at the reality? It feels absurd. It does. But that is because it's beyond our control. It's beyond the control of anyone, and it's no one's fault. To struggle against it would be counterproductive as is struggling in quicksand. It would not be surrender. And when I think about surrender, the image that keeps coming to mind is a shell on a beach during low tide. And we may feel kicked and stepped on and thrown off by misinformation and contradicting reports and theories. We may even try to get buried further down and feel safe, removed, or secure. But high tide is coming, and the best place to be is fully surrendered and available to be carried back to where we belong. Friends, do not fight against this reality. And I'm speaking to myself as much as to anyone else. You could just ask my wife. At times, on certain days, I feel like I'm losing my mind. My patience is wearing thin. But please do your best, and you too, Phil, to not fight against this reality. Don't push others down. Have compassion and begin to see that we have all been washed ashore. A little dried out, yes, and a little calloused, yes. A little stepped on and a little broken. All of us longing for the old familiar waves to move us toward and away from each other rhythmically, routinely, predictably. You are not alone in your restlessness, your heartache. In fact, there is more opportunity to be understood now than ever before. Find your stance on the beach, fully surrendered. Do not hide from the reality of this dry moment. While high tide slowly rolls in to gather once again both those we lost and our newfound lives, may we let a flurry and flood of high tide return us home to new and familiar waters. Do not fight against that current, friends. No, lean into it and learn of the surrender that is required of us to get there. Let the waves come in. Let them come in on their own. They're coming. They're coming. They aren't meant to get here any faster than they're getting here. You don't have the power to bring them in, but the waves that will wash you free are on their way. Surrender. And I'll finish with this quote from Marianne Williamson. The quote is from her book, A Return to Love, which, what a great title for where we are at. The quote is this: "The moment of surrender is not when life is over. It's when it begins." Friends, at the end of this episode and at the end of every episode, we close with some positive affirmation. We find a reflection of ourselves and we trust the neuroscience that has been backed up by countless research that we can rewire our brains. The power is within us to do that. And we do that how? With positive storytelling. With beginning to tell ourselves positive things that may be hard to believe at first, but soon, over time, those positive stories become more powerful. We begin to believe them more than the negative ones that have been told to us. So, find a reflection of yourself. And as hard as it is, say this to yourself, to your reflection. Say it out loud. Here we go. Today I choose to surrender and let the waves of life crash over me. Very good. It got a little poetic, this episode, and it got a little symbolic. If it's weird to you, okay, that's fine. Try something and allow yourself to go there. You're trying something now by downloading some self-help podcast. Might as well go there. Might as well try it. You might find that a small step like that is the first step in the right direction to some new freedom. And I am all about trying to take a realistic view on self-help and self-improvement. And if this feels weird to you, I'm sorry. Keep looking. Maybe try to find something else or try another episode or a few episodes with me. Let's bring it down to earth, right? It's not some magical power, but it's really right here, right now. It's practical. It's easy. It's you and me. Or maybe it's just you. But we're in a time of our lives where we get to kind of go inward and look inward and question things more than we've ever been able to do before because there is less distraction. I hope you do that, and I hope you continue, and I will continue to put these out. And please reach out. It's never, you shouldn't ever do anything like this on your own. You should include other people, other voices, and let people in your immediate life know where you are at in the journey of self-discovery you are starting to go down. And please, if you need counseling, reach out. BetterHelp.com/YMH5 is a good place to start. But no one can make you do that. It is a decision you have to make. Any of these self-discovery, self-improvement, direction, steps, whatever, they're yours to take. It starts with you.